Davion Mitchell and the Sacramento Kings spoiled Tyrese Haliburton's revenge. Buddy Hield goes classic with his turnovers, and I'm feeling petty today. Draft lottery odds be damned. Let's celebrate this Kings win here on the Locked On Kings podcast.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all regular season and all off season. If you're looking for in-depth analysis, game-by-game breakdowns, highlights, interviews with local and national experts, full coverage of your Sacramento Kings from January through December, this is the place for you, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. This is my 8th season covering the Sacramento Kings, now with ABC 10 News here in Sacramento. And P.E. to the T-T-Y. I'm feeling petty today, man. It feels good for the Sacramento Kings to defeat Tyrese Haliburton, Buddy Hield, and the Indiana Pacers, even if draft lottery odds suggest that the Kings would have been better off losing this game. The fact that the Kings were able to defeat those two, remove the revenge narrative, and do it without De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't at least a little part of me, but in reality, it's a big part of me that feels good about this one. I understand if you're frustrated that the Kings found a way to win this off of a last-second put-back finish by Davion Jones at the rim with like 0.2 seconds left. I understand if you're frustrated about draft lottery odds and if you would have preferred the Kings to lose this game. I get it. If you want to be mad at anybody, though, be mad at Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield. Oh, I would say I love him, but it's not true. I love seeing Buddy doing what he does for another team and not for the Sacramento Kings. Now, I have to be fair a little bit because I'm going to be mean, but I have to be fair. Buddy Hield had a really efficient offensive game. Like overall, Buddy, I thought, played pretty well. His shot selection was really good. He was doing more than just shoot the basketball. Went 5 of 8 from three-point range, 10 of 18 from the field overall. Also dished out 7 assists, finished with a team high 25 points. Like, Buddy had a pretty solid game for the Indiana Pacers, except for the first time and the last time that he touched the basketball. The game opens with Buddy off of the opening tip, dribbling the ball off his leg. And then the game ends with Buddy Hield and the Pacers up 1. The Pacers give the ball to Buddy Hield in the backcourt. All he has to do is get fouled. He's their best free throw shooter, go to the line, hit 2, make things a lot more difficult for the Kings, who have to hit a 3 to tie the game. Instead, when the Kings bring a little bit of pressure with him in the backcourt, Buddy Hield does what he does best as a ball handler. He dribbles the ball off of his leg out of bounds, gives the Kings possession. They miss the first attempt, and then Davion Jones gets the putback for the win. I can't even pretend to not enjoy that, and you can't either. Come on. I know draft lottery odds. I understand. I really do. And maybe this comes back to bite the Kings if the Pacers end up with the 5th pick and the Kings end up with the 6th pick. I get it. But for this moment, at least right now, it might not be worth it come the draft lottery in a couple of months. But for right now, man, it feels so sweet. Come on, you have to admit it feels sweet to see how the Kings won this game, to see Buddy Hield it was what I say. It was on Twitter, it was the most Buddy Hield of Buddy Hield turnovers. And it's something that we've seen so many times over the 300 plus games that he played in a Kings uniform. And for him to do it against the Kings, hey, maybe it was Buddy's plan all along. Maybe Buddy knew that the Kings were trying to lose that game. I don't think they were, but maybe Buddy Hield knew that if the Kings lost that game, they would get even better draft lottery odds. And so he wanted to screw over the Kings the only way that he knew how, by actually gifting them the win. If that's the narrative you want to spin for yourself, have fun with it, because we're all loopy at this point in time. It's a overall relatively meaningless game in the sense of lottery, or rather like playoff standings and just NBA standings in general. It is meaningful in draft lottery standings, but it's even more meaningful with how the young guys played in this game. The fact that the Kings defeated the Pacers without Fox and Sabonis. And look, I'll be that guy Like, Tyrese Haliburton, love the guy to death, wish him nothing but the absolute best for the Indiana Pacers unless he's playing the Sacramento Kings. Tyrese, your team lost to your former team who was missing their two best stars. And on top of that, Tyrese, you got outplayed by Davion Mitchell. Davion Mitchell outplayed Tyrese Haliburton. I'm sorry. Like, if you look at the box score, it's not a massive difference between the two. Like, Tyrese still had a very efficient game, at least when it came to passing the ball. Finished with a double-double, 13 points, 15 assists. That's amazing. You get 15 assists out of Tyrese Haliburton. Love it. Then the closest king to that was Dante DiVincenzo with 8 assists off the bench. Love 15 assists. Love the ball movement. He shot 4-14 from the field. Meanwhile, Davion Mitchell, again, without his two best players, Davion Mitchell got the start again, coming off of his career high performance, and in 37 and a half minutes, he went 10 of 15 from the field, 2 of 5 from three-point range, finished with 25 points, also dished out 7 assists. Also had a steal, too. Like, Davion Mitchell led the Kings to this victory, had some help with a big game from the birthday boy Chimezie Metu, who just turned 25. Chimezie had a career high by halftime, he tied his career high, I think, with 18 points. Finishes with 22 points off of the bench. The Kings get 7 players in double-figure scoring. I mean, how can you not love to see that? Now, the revenge angle on the other side for former Pacer Justin Holiday and former Pacer Jeremy Lamb. Lamb had a significantly better game than Holiday did, had 10 points on 4 of 8 shooting off of the bench. Justin Holiday, another rough night for him, 1 of 6 from the field. All 6 attempts were 3-pointers. Finished with just 3 points, only played 21 and a half minutes. So, sure, you want more out of him. But overall, like, if you're bothered by lottery standings, I get it. But if you were to have to accept a win, isn't the best win to accept a win off of the back of a young guy like Davion Mitchell? Like, if the Kings were to have won this game because, like, Alex Len and Trey Lyles and Harrison Barnes went supernova, if they were to win because of that, then I understand, like, crap, like, this doesn't really mean anything. But the fact that they won with the team playing as well as they did offensively, and with Davion Mitchell being the guy to lead the charge, like, that's a big, big difference maker. And we're going to talk towards the end of the podcast about the Kings still being in need of a secondary ball handler, because Mitchell had good moments, of course, also had some pretty bad ones, and the Kings were clearly lacking some playmaking during stretches of this game. Like, a lot of that fell onto Dante DiVincenzo when Mitchell was out of the game. It was not good. It really wasn't. So the Kings need to probably look at finding a third ball handler and third playmaker this offseason, depending upon what they decide to do with Davion Mitchell. I believe Mitchell is going to be their primary ball handler and playmaker off of the bench. But even so, you need a little more depth in case you have games like this where one of the two, Fox and Mitchell, doesn't play. To me, it's way easier to accept a win like this because of how well Davion Mitchell played. Now, Damian Jones and Chimezie Metu, who we're about to talk about, they had good games as well. Damian Jones gets the game winner. We have question marks whether or not both of them are going to be on the team next year. I know I want Damian Jones on the team next year. I'll talk about that a little bit more after I tell you about a couple of great sponsors here of the Locked On Kings podcast. The first one being BetOnline. It's that time of the year again. College basketball's tournament finally upon us. These games and upsets have been wild, and hopefully you've been making money. Hopefully your brackets are still alive too. If you want to make some money on sports betting, the best place to do that is BetOnline for the latest odds, contests, and player props. They're the number one source for all your sports betting needs and information. BetOnline is the best spot for all your sports scores, your podcasts, and your news this season. And it's not just basketball, of course. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. And look, use your knowledge of the Sacramento Kings to make money on a nightly basis. Hey, maybe you were expecting the Kings to lose this game, and if honestly you bet against the Kings on most nights, at least this season, you're probably going to make some money. But you can even wager on future aspects of the Sacramento Kings, things that haven't happened yet. You can wager on the draft lottery and where the Kings are going to end up. You can wager on who's going to coach the Kings this season. You can wager on a ton of stuff. It's all fun, and it's all available for you on BetOnline, where the game starts. Locked On Kings is also brought to you by Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is something that even if you're not the healthiest person, even if you're not the most active person, not the biggest gym guy, like, look, Honestly, I'm really not. It shouldn't surprise anybody if you actually get a glimpse at me and see how skinny I am. You shouldn't be surprised that I'm not the healthiest guy and not the biggest gym rat on the planet. In fact, I rarely go to the gym. But what Athletic Greens does for me, it does different things for a ton of people. It gives you so many benefits. But the biggest thing that Athletic Greens does for me is it helps with my sleep. It helps with my recovery because I work weird hours. I'm up very, very early. Sometimes I'm up late as well, covering Sacramento Kings games and going to games. Athletic Greens has really helped me with my overall sleep health, giving me the nutritions that I need and helping with those quick turnarounds and that overall recovery. Athletic Greens is extremely lifestyle friendly, whether you eat like keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or even gluten-free. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting delicious. It supports better sleep quality, this is the big thing for me, and recovery, supports mental clarity and alertness. It's the one thing with the best things. Athletic Greens uses the best of the best products based on the latest science with constant product iterations and third-party testing. They're constantly trying to perfect it and find better ways to make you better overall. Athletic Greens has over 7,000 5-star reviews. It's recommended by professional athletes, trusted by leading health experts such as Tim Ferriss and Michael Gervais. Go and give Athletic Greens a try, and they're going to hook you up. They're going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NBA network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NBA network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. I've already gushed over the game that Davion Mitchell had, and it's clear, at least to me, that he outplayed Tyrese Haliburton, making this game even more sweet. But Chimezie Metu was fantastic in this game, as was Davion Jones, who was the hero with the game winner. He gets the moment, but Davion Mitchell, of course, gets the game ball. But he might have to share that ball a little bit with with Chimezie Metu, who just a day after turning 25, Metu's now in his prime, and he showed it with a extremely impressive, he was red hot to start this game in the first half, going into halftime, tying his career high with 18 points, finishes with just 22, so not the best of second halves, but overall, a very efficient game for Chimezie Metu in 26 minutes, 8 of 11 from the field, 3 of 4 from three-point range. You love to see his ability to space the floor. He was shooting turnaround jumpers. He was attacking the glass, and he dunks. When he gets alley-oop opportunities or dunk opportunities, he dunks with aggressiveness. I tweeted it out. He dunks like the rim is Jonas Valanciunas' head. And if you don't understand that reference, Jonas Valanciunas was the big man that played for the Grizzlies, I think, at the time, that pulled Chimezie Metu off of the rim last season, causing him to hurt his wrist and keep him out for a while. Metu hasn't really had his chance to get revenge on Valanciunas by dunking on him quite yet, but if the rim were to be any player for Metu to take his aggressiveness out on, it would be Jonas Valanciunas. So it was great to see Metu have the game that he had. And then Davion Jones in 30 minutes got the start tonight at the 5 spot with Domantas Sabonis out. Efficient, 5 of 6 from the field. Only 6 rebounds. You'd like to see him get that number up. An assist, a block shot, and a steal as well. Did some good things. Wasn't phenomenal, but is just consistently solid. And how many times, if you've listened to Locked On Kings this season, how many times have I said that about Davion Jones? I truly would not mind seeing Jones back in a Kings uniform next season, and I think he has a legitimate shot of being the everyday rotational Kings backup big. Now, you could also throw that question right back at me or turn that around on me and say, Matt, if Davion Jones is your backup center, how much better are the Sacramento Kings next season? I understand that. If this is going to happen, that means Richaun Holmes is no longer on the team, which is an expectation of mine at this point. But look, I'm not expecting Davion Jones to play more than 15 minutes a night if he's backing up Domantas Sabonis. But what Davion Jones provides, the consistency, the energy, the aggressiveness on both ends of the floor, the attitude that he's willing to do all of the little things, he's willing to do the dirty work to get that playing time. That's something that this Kings team needs. That consistency, the consistent effort that he's provided all season long, that is so needed here in Sacramento. And while I understand that there are probably better backup center options out there, you're not going to blow anybody away by getting a 6th man of the year big man candidate this offseason. I'm sorry, it could happen. It's unrealistic to expect that. If you're looking for a cost-efficient option, I think Davion Jones is that guy. I would love to see Damian Jones back here in Sacramento. I give him more of an edge to return than I do Chimezie Metu, despite Metu having the great game that he had. No idea what Metu's future is. I think my gut honestly tells me that Metu's not going to be around next season. Not that he's not going to be in the NBA, because some team will take a flyer on him. But I don't necessarily see Metu as a long-term Sacramento King, but I could be wrong. And when he plays games like he did tonight, he certainly ups his value, and he certainly will get the Kings and Monte McNair thinking about it a little bit harder than maybe they were before. 26-48 now on the season. The Kings fall back behind the Indiana Pacers by half a game in the draft lottery standings. I know, it'll be okay. It really will be okay. The Kings still have plenty of opportunities to lose. However, if you're looking at this road trip that the Kings are on, this is game 1 of a 5-game road trip. A lot of winnable games on this road trip. The hardest game is their meeting against the Miami Heat happening on Monday, but their next game is against the Orlando Magic, who are in a fierce tanking battle right now with the Houston Rockets and Detroit Pistons. And speaking of the Rockets, then you get them twice back-to-back on Wednesday, March 30th and Friday, April 1st in Houston. So there's a very good chance that the Kings go 4-1 during this 5-game road trip, which I know would cause some of you, if not most of you, to pull your hair out in frustration, because that could be the difference in the Kings not only being in the 6th spot, but maybe even being in the 7th spot. It's going to be tough for the Kings to find a way to lose all 3 of the Magic games and the 2 Rocket games. I don't see how that's going to happen, but hey, maybe the Kings can supreme tank and get it done. But as long as Davion Mitchell is playing, and maybe it's going to take the Kings actually sitting Davion Mitchell for one of these games for rest purposes, or maybe he picks up a little dinger of an injury. I'm not rooting for that at all, but if Davion Mitchell is playing, we know he's going to play hard, and if he continues to be on this tear, I have a hard time believing that the Kings are going to lose more than just one of those games. I do expect them to lose the game to the Miami Heat, though. So that's that one I can pretty much pencil in a loss in that one. But don't worry, after this road trip, the Kings will end the season with some tough battles. The Warriors, the Pelicans, the Clippers, and the Suns. However, while that Pelicans team may be in full force, I question how full force the Warriors, Clippers, and Suns are going to be, especially the Suns. That's the last game of the season. At that point, I imagine Phoenix is going to be resting their players, getting ready for a deep playoff run. So who knows? Maybe the Kings find a way to get over 30 wins with the remainder of this schedule and make things look a little bit better than they are right now. But obviously, draft lottery standings wise, that probably wouldn't help this team too much. And no word whether or not the Kings are going to shut down De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis for the remainder of the season. I'm guessing it's unlikely. I think Fox will play at least a few more games. He's still out with his hand injury, but he was working out before the game and was very active coaching on the bench. It was good to see Fox and his leadership on display on the bench. And then you have Domantas Sabonis, who has just a knee bone bruise. He's going to be reevaluated and is expected to make a full recovery, so I imagine he'll be good to go for at least 1 or 2 games before the season is said and done. But I know many of you do want the Kings to just shut down the 2 of them and let the young guys go for the remainder of the season. If you want to discuss that, you can also always reach out to me at MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Even though Davion Mitchell had a great game, the Kings still have one glaring issue. I'll tell you what that is after I tell you about Rock Auto, another long-time fantastic sponsor here of the Locked On Kings podcast. I know absolutely nothing about cars. Nothing. Zero. Like, if I just expect to turn my key in for my car to turn on, or to press my engine button in for the car to turn on, and if it doesn't, the world might as well be ending because I have no idea what to do. Thankfully, I've discovered that while I have no idea what each auto part does, I know how to at least save money on them, and that's by using Rock Auto. Instead of going to my dealership or local auto parts store and being forced into their brands and their price points for the parts that I need when my car needs repairs, I can go onto rockauto.com, browse a bunch of different parts. It's user-friendly. It'll explain things to you like you're 5 years old, which is exactly what I needed. It's also great, of course, for the veteran car guy and mechanic out there. You can find everything you need. You can save 50 or even 100% more than your local auto parts stores on rockauto.com. They're also a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Their prices are reliably low for every customer, regardless of how much you know about cars. And they have everything you need from brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. When Davion Mitchell was on the floor, the Kings looked really good for the most part, with the exception of that third quarter. When Davion Mitchell was off the floor, yikes. The Kings are in need of a third ball handler. And I don't know who that guy is going to be. The Kings aren't going to go out and spend a boatload of money on that guy. There are certainly going to be options for the Kings this offseason. And I'm going to put together a little bit later on like a wish list of things that the Kings need to address. The top of the priority list is figuring out what they're doing with their starting two-guard spot. It might be Davion Mitchell. It might be Donte DiVincenzo. It could be Justin Holiday, although I'm not the biggest fan of that. Or it could be another guy that they go out and get. Maybe they get him in the draft. But also, to me, the top priority is figuring out what you're doing at the 4 spot next to Domantas Sabonis. To me, that might actually be the top priority. If you can find a way to get a consistent, not necessarily star, but really solid starting 4 3-and-D type player to fit with Sabonis, that would be the start of a home run offseason for Monte McNair. Now, of course, you could also put Kings head coach at the top of that priority list as well, and I expect the Kings to do a full-on coaching search this offseason. We'll dive into a lot of that as the offseason gets closer, and certainly when the coaching search begins. But if there's something to be put a little bit further down the priority list, to me, it is another primary ball handler, just someone who can come in, who you know is capable of running an offense. No one that has to wow you. You're not going to go out and get a player that is suddenly going to come in off the bench and average 15 points per game, although it is possible. But if the Kings can go out and find someone who is basically a third-string point guard, who backs up Fox and Davion Mitchell, maybe you can even pair them with one of those two. That's why I like DeLon Wright so much when he played here for a short time last season in Sacramento, because he's one of those guys. Now, this was, of course, was before Davion Mitchell was here, but Tyrese Haliburton was here. And when Fox and Haliburton were not in the game, DeLon Wright did a very good job of running the offense, and he was at least consistent enough and solid enough to where I didn't have to worry about it. Versus in a game like this, as much as I like Donte DiVincenzo, and he had kind of a rough night, it's not his game. He's not capable of being a playmaker, especially for a group of guys that's not really used to playing together, who's missing their 2 stars. So maybe I give Donte a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because of the circumstances of this game, but overall it was blatantly obvious when the Kings were on the floor and lacking that ball handler playmaking presence that Davion Mitchell thankfully was very much able to provide. Look, I will not stop gushing about Davion Mitchell and how he's played over these last couple of games. And again, like I said earlier, if the Kings are going to win a game and sacrifice their lottery odds a little bit, this is one of the exact ways that you want them to do it. Winning on the road, on the back of their rookie point guard, who's fighting to prove that he is a long-term fit for this Kings team and maybe even is the right guy to start next to De'Aaron, at either the 1 or the 2 spot in some combination. So love what I saw out of Davion Mitchell. Again, he did outplay Tyrese Haliburton, and as much as I love Tyrese and wish him the absolute best, I think he's going to be excellent in his career. I think he's going to be excellent for the Indiana Pacers, and we will get a for sure true revenge Pacers versus Kings matchup next season. No idea if Buddy Hield is still going to be on the Pacers, but we expect Tyrese to be, of course. And then hopefully Sabonis will be healthy in that game. And even De'Aaron Fox versus Tyrese Haliburton is a matchup that we all want to see. We'll get that next season. I would love to see that be like game 1 or game 2 of the season just to get it going, because unfortunately we didn't get it in tonight's game. But as of right now, round 1 goes to the Sacramento Kings, and they did it without their 2 stars. I think that looks worse on Tyrese and Buddy and the Pacers than it does on the Kings draft lottery standings overall. And I will say, as much as, here comes the pettiness again, and I don't care, as much as the national media talked about, man, the Kings were fleeced, Buddy Hield, in addition to Tyrese Haliburton going to Indiana, man, what the hell are the Kings doing? The Kings are idiots. As much as they want to say that, tonight's game plus how De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis have played together over the course of this the second half of the season or since the trade deadline, even if the Kings' record still hasn't been the best, I'm telling you, if I'm not going to go as far as to say the Kings have won the trade at all, but it's definitely a lot more even. In fact, I still think it's a win for both teams, and it's time for that to be acknowledged and recognized a little more here, on not just on Locked On Kings and not just by the media here in Sacramento. If you want to talk about this game, talk about your thoughts on Haliburton and Buddy Hield in another uniform, talk about the Kings winning despite maybe you wanting draft lottery odds to improve, let me know. Let me know how you're feeling. At MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. Appreciate all your support as always. Can't wait to have you join me. I'm expected to be joined by a familiar guest on tomorrow's Locked On Kings podcast, hoping to be able to sit down with Jason Ross for the first time since right before the season started. Jason Ross, of course, the former host here of the Locked On Kings podcast, works with Kings Radio and KHTK Radio here in Sacramento. Would love to chat with him about the remainder of this season, what he saw from this game, his thoughts on the Sabonis trade, and so much more. I hope you will join me for that. And whenever you join me, I as always appreciate your support. Can't wait till next time. Until then, my name is Matt George. You have been listening to Locked On Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.